Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Good morning, friends. In the span of a fortnight, India's foreign policy and national security strategy with respect to its belligerent neighbors, China and Pakistan, made an about turn. On the 10th of February, the thaw began in the 11-month-long crisis in eastern Ladakh. And on 25th February, the DGMOs of India and Pakistan announced the resuscitation of the informal 2003 ceasefire along the line of control. Both are first steps towards a long haul to achieve lasting peace on the unsettled borders, and this process will test India's diplomacy and patience. Why has India made this about turn? Much has been written about why China and Pakistan have agreed to mend relations with India, but very little about why India has made an about turn. The BJP government inherited relative peace along the line of control and the LAC in 2014. In Kashmir, the previous governments for 2 decades had followed a policy of strategic restraint. There were 2 elected governments which were in power for nearly 12 years, and Mr. Vajpayee and Dr. Manmohan Singh had began talks with Pakistan for a long-term settlement. This ensured that peace prevailed in Jammu and Kashmir, particularly along the line of control. Despite some untoward incidents, including beheadings that took place on the line of control and the 2008 major Mumbai terrorist attack, peace along the line of actual control generally held. This enabled India to control the insurgency in Jammu and Kashmir. And by 2014, terrorist violence and the number of terrorists had been reduced to double digits. On the line of actual control, despite the Depsang intrusion by China in 2013, by and large, peace held because of the 1993 and subsequent agreements. When the BJP government came to power, its ideology inherently laid down that it should adopt a strong, hard policy as far as territorial integrity is concerned and national security is concerned. That notwithstanding, it began with peace overtures to Pakistan, which was scuttled by the Pakistan army and the sponsored terrorists. After 2015, the government adopted a policy of no talks can go along with terrorism. And for the last nearly 5 years or 6 years, one can say, there has been no dialogue with Pakistan. Insurgency in Jammu and Kashmir revived. BJP government lacked a political policy to win the hearts and minds. Despite forming a coalition with the PDP, its declared adversary in earlier era, there were major terrorist incidents, and India responded uniquely by carrying out trans line of control and trans international boundary strikes. One is well aware of the surgical strikes and the Balakot strikes. Despite this, Pakistan did not change its policy. As far as China is concerned, India had a very good policy towards China. Both sides engaged in talks. There were mutual visits. And at the same time, China was also carrying out intrusions because the Bharatiya Janata Party government had decided that it will develop infrastructure in the border areas And it made no secret of its political aim to regain the lost territories of Aksai Chin and the other areas which have been usurped by China in the era up to 1962, and in some cases, bits and pieces here and there after 1962. This led to crisis situation with China, first in a third country in Doklam, where we nearly went to the brink of war. The Chinese withdrawal from Doklam, which was agreed to and followed by the Wuhan summit, sent wrong signals to India. India thought that it had prevailed upon China. Consequently, we gave greater impetus, and we also adopted a situation of confrontation to Chinese intrusions, which in earlier era were temporary in nature and remained temporary in nature up to 2020. Finally, this belligerent policy, notwithstanding the two summits, led to the crisis in eastern Ladakh. So, the policy of the BJP government was inherently flawed. Its national security strategy was inherently flawed. Why was it flawed? Because it did not take into account the fundamentals of a security strategy. First and foremost, it did not carry out an ethical strategic review to decide what kind of a strategy it must adopt. Who are the adversaries? What is our capability? Consequently, we do not have a formal national security strategy. The National Security Advisor, whose charter it is formulate the national security strategy as head of the Defense Planning Committee since 2018, he has failed to formulate a formal national security strategy. If you do not have a national security strategy, then all your actions are functional in nature. They are not proactive, and they tend to be reactive. Another fundamental is that states armed with nuclear weapons cannot fight a decisive war. Conflict can be engaged in the threshold below the use of nuclear weapons come about. To achieve anything worthwhile below the nuclear threshold, you have to have a technological military edge to punish the adversary, and also, if forced, to engage in short duration, a limited war. China has this edge against us, but we do not have the same edge over Pakistan, as has been proved by the aftermath of the surgical strikes and Balakot strikes, that this kind of a strategy without a real clear edge offers only diminishing returns. It only leads to more violence. And even amongst the powers where one side has a clear edge, there are limitations to use of force. Because if the other side has adequate potential to stalemate it, then it is defeat for the superior power. Like China, despite its clear edge over us, we were able to stalemate it in eastern Ladakh. And similarly, Pakistan has the capability to stalemate us. The third major flaw of the BJP's national security strategy was that we did not carry out a realistic understanding, a realistic assessment of our military capability. The military hierarchy failed to properly advise the government. Either it got carried away by neo-nationalism, or it was simply overawed by the personality of Prime Minister Modi. It did not offer correct advice. No nation can engage in a two-front war. And if you are forced into such a situation, then you must settle with one of the two. And it is better to settle with the weaker power than with the superior power. Like, it's better to settle with Pakistan than to go for a settlement with China because it talks from a position of strength. Similarly, China has got bigger concerns in South China Sea and Taiwan. So it would like to settle with India rather than settle up there to avoid a kind of a two-front situation for itself. Once you violate such fundamentals of strategy, the outcome will offer only diminishing returns. And by 2021, this strategy had run its course. It required a change. And this is exactly what has happened. And I must give credit to the Prime Minister that he has carried out a realistic assessment despite meandering all over the place in terms of national security for 7 years and made a radical change. And we are going in for rapprochement with both Pakistan and China. Of course, it's going to be a long haul. It's not going to be an easy task. It will test our diplomacy. It will test our patience. There will be hiccups. There will be terrorist actions. But it is in our interest. It is in the interest of Pakistan and China. All three countries realize the limits of the use of force. And all three countries realize that for better economy, you need to have peace on the borders. India wants to become a great power. To become a great power, we have to raise our comprehensive national power manifold, particularly in the economic and in the military fields. We need time for this. Once you have a clear edge in economic national power, in comprehensive national power, half the time your adversaries won't even dare to, pick up conflict with you. Like India cannot pick up a conflict with China. We cannot initiate a conflict, whereas China can. And once you have a clear edge or take it to a level that you can challenge each other, like China has done today, it is inferior to the United States, but it can still give a reasonable challenge to the United States. And it is giving. So there has been a course correction in a flawed national security strategy and foreign policy. Prime Minister Modi has the popularity and the stature and the will to take this peace process forward and bring about permanent settlement along the line of control and line of actual control. Of course, what is the final outcome will have to be negotiated. We have the Musharraf Vajpayee and the Musharraf Manmohan Singh 4-point agreement, which can form the basis after discussions on the issues of sovereignty, to which India can have objections now with the BJP government in power. And with China having reached the 1959 claim line, albeit with buffer zones, I find no reason as to why China shouldn't agree to at least demarcate the borders pending a final settlement. And in my view, it is in all likelihood, if this is done, it will forego its claims in other sectors. As I said, I repeat, Mr. Modi has the popularity, the stature, the political skills, and the will to do this. This should be his legacy goal, and this will make him truly a great statesman and a great leader. Enjoy reading this column.